Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Let's UnWine series powered by VizyPay in partnership with Paytech Women. I'm your host, Otai Lavon. So our topic today is payments, fintech. There is no playbook. The payment and fintech landscape constantly evolves, and new technology, regulations, consumer demands shape our industry. So, of course, you want to see a playbook, but reality, there is no single playbook to follow. Our table talk conversation is a brief insight to how to navigate these changes and at the same time elevate your professional profile regardless of generational stereotypes. So, for those that are joining us, we encourage you to actively participate in the discussion. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment section and we'll do our best to answer them. I see you. Hello, hello. I see everyone joining. Thank you. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. So now I want to introduce to you our guest speakers, CEO, founder at Arkham, Sebastian Builes. Oh, did I get it wrong?
Wow, it was very close, but we're definitely progressing in the right direction. There you go.
Executive Director at Georgia FinTech Academy, Laura Gibson-Lamothe. Thank you
Yep.
for joining me. How's it
Thank you for
going?
having us. Good. I got
Yeah,
my
it's a
unwine
pleasure.
cup right here. Yeah.
All right, all right. Well,
I also
we
have my,
haven't. What do you have, Sebastian? Let's see.
I think the background it's messing with it right now.
Yeah, you got an invisible cup right now.
You
I
got
think
a
the,
visible
the
cup.
hand helps. Yeah, the hand
Yeah.
helps. Yeah.
What do you
I
got
have a
there? Some
sparkling water.
Chardonnay?
No,
No,
sparkling
come
water.
on,
Yeah.
come
In New
on,
York,
Laura.
I
This
got
is
bottled
on
sparkling water.
wine. This goes on wine in here. You're in
Well,
New
I have
York,
pass.
Laura.
So everyone, let's raise your glass, your beverage of choice, whether it's water like Sebastian or a press like myself, and let's unwind. Cheers.
Salud.
Salute.
L'chaim.
All right. So,
Zdrovia.
Sebastian, okay. I was gonna say something in Laos, but I can't think of the word.
It's okay.
Um,
We
so Sebastian, so tell us how you got started. Were you born and raised in the payments and fintech space, or was this something you accidentally slipped into? I know I had a conversation with Laura about, no one actually just randomly says, I want to get into the fintech space or the payment space. It's just something that we just fall into accidentally or from somebody that we talk to, someone we're networking, and it just happens to be we learn more about the industry. So I'm curious, both of your parts, but so Sebastian, because I haven't heard your story, you know were you born and raised in this space?
I have yet to meet the first person that was born and raised in payments and fintech. And I'm no different, right? When I graduated or I finished grad school, I got a job as a consultant in actually the publication space. So complete different world from payments, right? And my job there was very simple. It's help newspapers and publications maintain their subscriber base by ensuring that those subscribers don't churn down the road, right? At some point, I get reached out or Evil Payments reaches out to try to recruit me. And I'll be honest, I didn't know anything about payments. I remember trying to prepare for the interview and I am reading their website and it just says, facilitating the movement of money across the globe. I was like, is this like MoneyGram? Is it like Western Union? Is it like, I really did not know exactly what it was, but it sounded exciting, right? At some point, I even remember thinking, it's like, am I about to sign up for a multi-level marketing type of scheme?
Yeah.
Because that's what it felt like, right? And obviously, fast forward some 70 years later, right? I'm stuck to this or stuck in the industry. And that's really on the basis of how exciting and transformative it is. And how impactful, right? I think I heard this stat at one point that payments touches your life at least 3 times a day, right? Whether it's you buying your coffee, you paying your bills, or you purchasing something, right, at the point of sale or online, right? And I think that's basically ubiquitous of everyone's life. And, it's rare that, unless you're inside the industry, right, it's very difficult for you to know all the intricacies that happen the moment you swipe your card.
Mhm. Yeah. Laura, and I know your story. You've shared it with me. Why don't you tell everyone here, audience, of your story of how you got into the space?
Yeah, I think similar to Sebastian's, my direction into the industry was not a linear kind of line. From an academic perspective, ironically, given that I'm evangelizing for fintech education, I came through the arts. I wanted to be a curator at the Museum of Modern Art in San Francisco, very specific goal. And it wasn't until I was investing in a master's degree that I realized that there's no money in that. And I didn't necessarily want to be a starving artist. When Sebastian mentioned like the touch points that we have as users, as consumers in this space, the payment space, not only is it how we pay for things, it's also how we get paid. Our life revolves around money. And for, folks that, look like me and came from where I came from, we didn't necessarily have access, I think, to some of these career pathways where people are influencing the technologies that we're interacting with day to day. And so that was what really excited me. I went a little bit more on the traditional route, got into banking. Banking was a gateway into tech for me, and it translated into fintech. We like to talk about the fact that fintech is relatively new, wasn't a term that was used, 10, 15 years ago. And so as I navigated my career from a banking and then financial services, I started off, doing ATM updates at Bank of America. We're talking about, real remote deposit capture. How can you get an image of a check into your deposit account? That was cutting edge technology back when I was, working as a junior project manager. I've done IRAs, CDs, then a lot of M&A work, worked on Countrywide, which was a pressure cooker moment for me, a lot of scrutiny, a lot of regulation, oversight, um, Merrill Lynch as well. And then I moved over to, working for some other banks, Wachovia, Wells Fargo, during an acquisition. Then Ally, which was 6 months, announced a bank when I had joined. It had a logo and not even any of the various products that they offer now. So being able to have that exposure and really get a taste for, I think, where I found the fulfillment and alignment with my passions, it created an environment where I got to kind of pick and choose my own adventure, and it led me into fintech in a very unique way, working from startups to working as a consulting, working with startups, and then now at the Georgia Fintech Academy, where my mission is to help, people of all backgrounds navigate their career pathways into the industry, whether or not it's traditional employment, like the opportunity that I told you that I had in my background, or it's entrepreneurship. So really exciting times to be a part of that journey and to see how, the experiences I have can relate to some folks who are navigating their own journey as well.
Yeah. I like the term that you use, pressure cooker. Ooh, that's a good terminology for sure. So you
Yeah, I
mentioned
like to
Georgia
say
Tech.
people come out resilient on the other side. Like a pressure cooker,
Yeah.
I love my pot roast. It just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of pressure, and the result is so beautiful in the end. So sometimes it can feel a little bit uncomfortable while you're navigating that journey, but the pressure cooker moments are where you can really shine and really excel.
Yeah. You
Yeah,
can smell it. You can smell it. Like there's light at the end of the tunnel. Like that
I
food's
know.
gonna taste good.
Exactly. Good cooking.
So you mentioned Georgia FinTech Academy. So I've heard great things happening over there. What's in the pipeline for the rest of 2025?
Yeah, for folks that do not know, I'm always carrying the Georgia FinTech Academy flag. We're a talent development initiative across the university system, working with 26 public facing institutions, offering a fintech curriculum and helping provide programming and access to opportunities across the entire ecosystem. 350,000 students enrolled at these Georgia institutions. We reached over 10,000 as of this spring semester, which is exciting. It's our 5-year milestone for the academy. And so I'm, strategically looking at, opportunities to have in-person events. We're looking at having our first time ever conference, most likely here in the end of the fall, and a career fair associated with that. We've stood up a community platform called FinConnect, where students can not only gain access to mentorship, but like have that community where they can go and work with their peers, network with their peers, get access to some of the web events that we host, and be able to share some of that content. We're also expanding our podcast. We have leaders from across the industry participate in our podcast with a student co-host, which makes it really relatable, as far as addressing some current trends and some things that for us who are more senior or exposed to the industry, we have a lot of, I call it water cooler conversations, or, I'm here in New York and we're talking about cutting edge, innovations and, new startups that are coming out of the woodwork. But for students, getting directly engaged in those conversations has been exciting to see through the format of a podcast. And then we're growing our partnerships. We've gotten a renewal recently with Visa. FIS continues to be a huge partner for us, but we're working with a variety of different companies where they're all providing a lot of the support that we need to provide students access to these resources. We just recently took 55 students to Visa in Atlanta, representing 5 different institutions. These opportunities really amplify the need across the university system. You have some institutions that aren't, they don't have the reputation of Georgia Tech and the access to the resources, but we're providing that connectivity where some of these students who might not have otherwise have exposure to that and get to see that real, in real life and experience that for themselves. So that's just a little summary of all the things that we're doing that's exciting. But I'm here in New York for New York Fintech Week. And I mean, partnerships, opportunities, even in this moment where there's a lot of, unfortunate conversations around the economy and how it's impacting and influencing fintech, but there's still a lot of work and energy around early talent. So it's a good space to be in.
Yeah, good for
Yeah,
you.
you're giving everyone, yeah. I was gonna say, I think you're giving everyone major FOMO right now about New York Tech.
New York. Yeah, I
know the hustle is real. The hustle and the bustle, I love it. It's so funny because you could tell like the folks that are, from here or live here or are here often, they don't necessarily appreciate just the energy and like walking down the street. Like I love it all. I love the weird smells, the traffic, you know what I mean? The random people yelling in the middle of the street. Like it's yeah, but it's also an environment, it's high energy everywhere. It's high energy out on the street. It is also high energy in these conversations in these rooms where we're talking about how can we better partner together. So it's a great place to be.
Cool. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing. And Sebastian, tell us more about Arkham and the type of companies you service.
Absolutely. So Arkham is we help acquirers do 3 main things. We started primarily by helping them mitigate customer or merchant retention, or attrition in this case, improve merchant retention. That was really on the basis of my experience at Evo. It was a big problem. No one had been able to crack that issue. So I figured, I was naive enough to think, hey, how hard can this problem be, right? And we dove in full force to try to solve it, right? Now we've sort of expanded our capabilities. Now we're really much geared towards helping acquirers, ISOs, processors, really grow their revenue without having to rely so much on sales. And what I mean by that is, normally as a ISO acquirer, you're really relying on your quality of leads, on your time to be able to engage those leads. And if you have a bad month of potentially, bad appointments or bad leads, and you potentially just miss your numbers, right, for the month, quarter, whatever it may be. We simply want to provide a new or a different alternative where, through what I call portfolio optimization, right? It's reduced merchant churn, increase the ability to cross-sell existing merchants or new products or services that may benefit that merchant, right? And last but not least, really help acquirers win back some of those merchants that they previously lost, and it wasn't maybe a fault of their own. Perhaps it was an agent who was responsible for that merchant's bad experience, but it doesn't mean that the ISO should be held to the fore due to that, right? So really, it has come to more of a revenue growth engine for acquirers in the space that wish to optimize and really start growing their portfolios more organically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
let's say,
know
can I want to add something real quick because I want to give as the young people say, I want to give Sebastian his flowers. I've watched Sebastian for the past couple of years and the things that he's doing. We were both recently in Vegas for ETA Transact, and I got to see him take the stage. But the exciting work that he's doing at Acrom is also translated into him having a presence from a thought leadership perspective. And so when we talk about like pathways, I don't know, Sebastian, you ever thought that you would be a thought leader on stages versus, because like, you know what I mean? Like it's like these opportunities unfold. They just continue to unfold. One thing leads to another.
Yeah, I always find it a little, odd sometimes, like being on stage, and it's like, whether it's imposter syndrome or you may, whatever you want to call it, right? You're like, well, like I'm really talking, a subject matter expert in this, payments and AI world. But I always sort of, go back and realize like, well, I have been putting all of my energy and attention to solving this one problem for the better part of 10 years, So it's like other 10 years, if you're not a subject matter expert on the problem you're helping to solve, then perhaps you should look for another career path at that point, right? So, but really is the industry, and sort of the community that exists within the space that makes it exciting, right? It
Mm-hmm.
it's the overlaps between circles, right? It's, for the longest we known each other, and then come to find out, oh, actually, you worked at Featurespace before? Like, wow, that is coincidence, right? It's like, oh, I met your boss before,
Yeah.
and he's a big, sort of advisor helping me out in terms of navigating through my own journey as an early stage startup founder, right? So it's also that almost like willingness to give within the space, that also makes it, for the most part, when the moments that are tough come and you're facing them, right? You have almost like a group of champions that want to see you win at the end of the day,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that makes this space like more, special than any other place that I've been. Granted, I only been
Right.
in publications other than this, but
And that's who you should be
Oh,
surrounding
right.
yourself with. You should be surrounding yourself with
Yep.
people that want to see you succeed,
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw this next question over to Laura. As we know, the landscape is always changing and evolving. What are some of your views when it comes to technology?
Ooh, it's a loaded one. Lately, we everywhere I go, I can't escape that question, to be honest. And the first reaction is AI and how AI is taking over the industry. For students, there's an innate fear of what does this mean to the career opportunities that I'm looking forward to in the industry. How does the way we work, the way we interact kind of change or be influenced by some of these new technologies. And when I say AI, I mean everything from, the fact that we've been leveraging AI for a long time from a fraud risk management perspective in the financial services and fintech sectors. But now we're talking about large language models and other ways of applying AI. Obviously, Akram and Sebastian have, a foundation rooted in AI as well. But all these different scenarios of which it's being applied means that students have to be more adapt and nimble than ever. We're offering as part of our curriculum access to at least get a taste of it and maybe specialize in various technical areas and competencies as well. But it's also complementing by sharing real world examples and use cases of which the technology is being applied, and how it's being utilized. And then also staying focused on the ethical aspect of things. How can we, address the fact that, there are biases in data, there's, regulation and risk and compliance factors to consider as well. But bringing those conversations full circle, and exposing our students to that is very critical for us. So it's just exciting times, I think, to see kind of how the industry has evolved. I mean, we're talking embedded payments. I remember, crypto being hot, and then crypto was not hot, and then now we're now talking about it again, and and
Hot again.
how
You're hot. You're hot. You're hot.
yeah. Well, I was talking to someone the other day because I'm like, it was one of those things where I've seen, crypto being applied as a solution for cross-border payments, which is another big hurdle for a lot of folks globally. And with the current economy and with, tariffs and some other things, like, does that influence the direction or trajectory of some of these technologies? Time will tell, but I think we're having some really exciting conversations, and this next gen is eager to be at the forefront of that. I think the confidence these youngins have these days
Yeah.
are a little bit different. For me, back in the day, I mean, I talk to Sebastian about this all the time. Entrepreneurship was never a consideration. I wanted to become a director. Maybe that was as high as I could go. An SVP somewhere, that was as high as I could go. And the more I got exposure, the sky was, limitless for me, but still very much contained. As much as I say I had, big ideals for myself, the idea of you're in a space where people can not only thrive in a traditional career, but branch out, take a risk, identify a pain point in a solution and develop it on their own, like Sebastian has done, is what makes this community great. It's a long-winded answer to your question, Jose, but I'm very passionate about that. I'm very passionate about that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Sebastian, did you hear that? You're a youngin.
Yeah, to lower everyone is a youngin though. I don't take that. I don't take that.
That's so true.
It's all coming from a place of love. I know that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So consumer
Yes.
demands are shaping the way we think and how we interact, and understanding these needs are critical for businesses and to develop products and services that effectively cater to their customers. So Sebastian, I'm going to throw this over to you, as that's what Arkham does. How are you factoring consumer demands with what you do?
That's a good question, right? In the sense that it's an interesting world, right? Because it's like most of the people we work with, they work with merchants, right? But those merchants are effectively serving consumers, right? So it really is based on how the consumer wants to pay. Um, what is that mechanism behind that really translates into the innovations that we later on see in the space. And sometimes those innovations come in really early that the consumer does not adapt until some major shift or shock happens across the economy, right? I always like to, point the example of NFC or tap and go, right? Tap and go tech has been with us for years, decades, right? But there was never a need for you to tap and pay anywhere, right? Fast forward 2020 pandemic, nobody wants to touch those dirty POSs. So guess what? Everyone is tapping and going, right? So
Yep.
it's almost fascinating sometimes where, yes, consumer demands do drive innovation within this space, but also sometimes the space sort of happens to innovate and wouldn't call it necessarily in a vacuum, right? But it takes time for those consumer demands and preferences to then take over, right? Whether it's some external event like COVID in this case, that opened the door for NFC to become the most popular payments method out there, right? So that's where I really do see there is, sure, consumer demands do sort of shape the tech behind how payments companies innovate, but at the same time, payments companies will have the tendency to innovate and maybe they'll solve something that doesn't become ubiquitous with how we pay until wait later until something else happens, right? Which is also, I think equally as important, right? And certain situations like Laura mentioned crypto payments, right? I'd imagine that consumers want to pay with crypto, right? And I'm not a big, crypto nerd by any means, right? But there is individuals out there that been playing with crypto and are into, the blockchain technology and wish to have that ability to pay their merchants bills. I mean, you got countries like El Salvador, if I'm not mistaken, where you can actually pay your taxes with Bitcoin, right? So it's also slow from the adoption standpoint of like, hey, consumer demands sort of shift payments technology, right? That would be a clear example where I
Yeah.
don't see that happening, just because again, you have to consider the hardware manufacturers need to be in place with the credit card processors, and the big processors need to be, able to effectively take this new rail of payments, which we're now calling crypto, which is decentralized. So it's always fascinating that yes, sometimes consumer demands does drive that payments adoption in a new way, but at the same time, sometimes the consumer demands may not necessarily play into sort of what the current stack of technology is available in this space. And I know that was a mouthful, but it's just I always find that those two particular examples, NFC and then crypto payments, right? How they both sort of tell different stories altogether.
You're right, though. Consumer demand is shaping the way that we're moving and how we're thinking of things futuristically. I could tell you, I still carry a bunch of credit cards around. I don't carry cash, but credit cards. So now everything is on your phone. I mean, why do I need to carry that credit card? I don't know. I feel a little like I need to have it with me, but I could have just add it to my wallet. Things are changing and shifting around, and we just need to modify as we go.
Unless you're in some remote island a couple of miles from Nicaragua and you're like, yeah, I'm not going to carry my cards. What if I lose them? And then you get to the other side of the island and you realize they don't have contactless payments there. So I do need a physical card.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Or cash.
What is
I actually we're in financial literacy month, and it's been a conversation I've been a part of in many different forums. But what you guys are talking about, I keep thinking about the reverse. If I think of, deconstructing what we're talking about as a consumer, I saw a stat 1.4 billion people across the world are unbanked. And what that means is those people are still operating cash first, and in this like
Yeah.
digital first kind of economy we have here in the US, we do have a technology digital divide, unfortunately, depending on where you come from and where you live. And so it's interesting to see these new technology capabilities that are addressing, or at least attempting to address that issue through not only financial literacy, but creating access, because access and knowledge is power, especially
Right.
when it comes to payments.
Yeah, I hear you. Cheers to that.
Yeah,
For
drink
sure.
to that.
chin chin to that one?
Mhm. So, whether you're new to the payments or fintech space or someone who is seasoned, how do you keep up with changes in technology?
Sebastian, you want to start?
Anyone?
Because I just
Uh, really, this is where I see, I've been, grateful, honored to really have a group of really great builders and people who have effectively operating at, the forefront of their technology, right? I think, we mentioned here feature space, or right, it's like I may not know anything about fraud, right? But if I have any fraud questions or systems that need to build for real-time analysis of fraudulent transactions take place, I know someone who to call, right? Same if I need to, learn a little bit more about ACH payments and what's the exciting things happening with such a boring rail that was ACH. Now it's like fintechs are jumping in there. No, seriously, right? It's like now fintechs are building on the backs of ACH rails, which for the longest for an acquirer processor, that was like 25 cents per transaction. Oh, boring, no margin, very much like penny collections. And now you have these fintechs that are coming in and really disrupting that to actually create additional margin for the processors that are doing this new way of working with the ACH rails, right? Through guaranteed ACH and these other creative ways to monetize that rail, right? So it really boils down to, I know that not everyone is maybe as outgoing or extrovert as I am, but you'll be surprised by how open people are to really distill and share their knowledge with you, right? Whether it's AI, whether it's ACH, whether it's B2B payments, whether it's ISVs and embedded payments, doesn't matter, right? There is always some expert in that field that is just 1 or 2 degrees away from you meeting them, right? So whether it's me asking someone directly about the question or saying, hey, Laura, love to connect with Dave in feature space. Can you make an intro, right? And there's that willingness to collaborate, but also really go out of each other's ways to lend a hand and possibly add a little bit more knowledge to the person who's looking for it.
Yeah. Laura, do you want to add into
Yeah.
anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, ditto what Sebastian said already. I think, I think fundamentally just staying curious, to me, it's so funny because I'm not that old, but I feel so old when I think about like how social media and how just access to knowledge and to information is just so readily available. Like you have to literally purposely ignore it. And now you have so much within your reach to inform you of, platforms like this, like having podcasts on a variety of different topics that you might be interested in is a great way to keep curious and to keep plugged in with the industry. I tell students all the time, LinkedIn is a powerful tool, leveraging that to, read articles, see posts from different, reputable publications, follow the influencers in this space, reach out and connect and network, mentor and be mentored. Some of our students, they have, Sebastian mentioned earlier, imposter syndrome. They have, maybe a diminished view of their achievements, but everyone's achieved something. And at some point, someone is just trying to get to where you are today. For some of my students, I'm like, the high schoolers are trying to come in, or a freshman in college that's not yet a sophomore, that might not have had an internship. They're looking for mentorship from someone who's already had an internship. And who better than someone who just went through that process for the first time as a near peer? And so there's so many different ways to, I think, stay connected in fintech and payments. And as Sebastian mentioned, the network's the most powerful thing. I keep saying about New York Fintech Week. Out of here, all the way in New York, meeting people that are in Atlanta. Of course, we have follow-ups back home. But I'm like, the world is so small, and this space is so small. And to Sebastian's point, like everyone's almost like 1 degree separation removed. Like we're so like intertangled in this space where it's like, what do you need? I can connect you to that need. You know what I mean? I can connect you to that person that has that expertise or has that connection or can open that door for you. And so, yes, staying current is easy. It's just, how do you prioritize, your focus to really take advantage of everything that's already accessible?
Right. Hey, I heard. Go ahead. Or are you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say, I was gonna say, you hit the nail on the head, right? It's like you just gotta prioritize it, right? Like it takes time. It takes time to, fly to New York, shake a bunch of hands for like 3 days, and like then have to follow up, and like you're literally talking your ear out, for 8, 10, 12 hours at the day. Hey, let's go for dinner, and then let's grab drinks, and then wake up early in the morning to do it all over again. Right. And then after all that is over, then like the follow-up happens, right? It's like cool conversation, but like we got to keep it going, this is only 30 minutes, right? And it takes time, right? To effectively be able to do that in a way that you're actually extracting value from the situation, right? So it's like one of those things that you have to give as much as you probably take, if not more, because it's not, it's not natural to go and shake hands for the sake of shaking hands and building relationships that may or may not play out in some 2-3 years down the road, right? And that's why you got to play the long game, right? It's like, hey, you never know when someone's going to be able to open a door that you've been trying to open for some time. And simply because you're, hey, when we first met, you're a nice person, and of course I'm gonna help you, right? And I think that's what really makes the difference between those that go seek and those doors are open versus maybe people who might be a little bit more enclosed and sharing and not talking more about opening to others, right? To effectively answer or help them navigate through some question, right? Because there is an aspect of like vulnerability when you're asking for, hey, I don't know about this topic, would love to learn more. You're an expert. Can you share that with me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And get uncomfortable, you're taking the risk. You're taking a risk on yourself. And I think that's what a lot of us need to hear is that the worst that you're going to hear is a no. That's the worst thing that you're going to hear,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I did
And I
hear
think I'm
you.
so used to being uncomfortable too.
Yeah.
And to your point about being uncomfortable, I'm comfortable being uncomfortable at this point, going, taking these trips by myself without a team
Yeah.
or going into a room where I know nobody, you know what I mean? And just introducing myself to complete and utter strangers. Like
Yeah.
after you do it a couple times, you just start getting used to operating in that kind of like that space where when you start seeing some of what Sebastian's talking about, things come together pretty quickly. Like it does take some work to put into it so you can get something out of it, but like the hustle is real, and it's interesting to see folks who are also like me who aren't necessarily I think we're kind of like fraudulent extroverts. People like look at me and they're like, "Oh, you're a complete introvert." I'm like, I'm an ambivert, I guess. Like I need to like, you know what I mean? I need to refuel. I hate going. I hate speaking. I hate going out. I hate being on the stage in the spotlight. But I'm dependent on that to get the visibility, to make momentum, to bring up the next generation of talent that I'm my mission is for. And so yeah, I always have to like put myself in those uncomfortable positions to really, stretch and connect with people.
Right. Right.
Laura,
Sure.
I'm sorry. I was gonna say I can't believe you don't like being on stage. I feel like you're always so poised when you're up there. It's like, all right, let's do this, you know?
It's a mask. It's a mask. I get it. I feel
It
you. I
is.
feel
It is.
it is.
Fooled me there.
It's a lot of energy to go out there, and then you have to take time to like decompress. Like, oh, I just need a minute. I just need to breathe, and then I'm ready to go again.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
there's one thing that you said. You mentioned this platform. So hey, I want to cheers to that. Get involved. This
Yes.
platform, that's what it's for sure. So before I get to my next question here, I do want to mention to those that are listening in, if you have a question for Sebastian or Laura or myself, go ahead and put it in that chat. We're going to get to that Q&A here in a little bit. My next question, in today's society, networking is a big factor. So we're talking about how to build yourself, how to build your community. How do you develop and grow as an individual? Sometimes you forget the power of collaboration and networking. So I know you two, hands down, as you talked about it, especially you, Laura, you're kind of like me. It's kind of uncomfortable, but I got to do it because I know I got to do it.
Yeah.
You two are expert at building your community. I mean, Sebastian, you had to do it, right? In order for people to know about Arkham, to know who you are. So what advice do you have for us when it comes to networking and building their community?
Laura?
Yeah, I'll start. And it's so funny because I tell students, and I didn't realize like sometimes it helps to be very prescriptive when you answer that question. Some people need to know, they might even have it written down on a card, like what do I say when I'm networking? What does networking look like, and how do you facilitate a conversation that's beneficial? I think networking looks like a lot of different things. I network all over the place. My husband
Yeah.
probably he complains about me networking in TJ Maxx. I might be in one aisle and a woman asks me if something looks good, and then all of a sudden we're exchanging career information, and then all of a sudden we're connected somehow, or something that's of interest to me. So networking can happen anywhere. And it's really taking advantage of the opportunity to connect with people. People, as humans, we all have different backgrounds and different interests. And so networking and kind of just exploring what that person has to offer. I think, knowing what you need helps. So for our students, they're either looking for an internship, they're looking for a job, they're looking for trends or to gain knowledge in cybersecurity. So they have very specific asks. So I'm like, know what it is that you want, and then be able
Yeah.
to like pitch yourself. So I constantly have to say Georgia FinTech Academy, executive director, my mission, the scope of work, what my impact is, what impact have you made. These are conversations that I have memorized. And so students and folks who are new to networking need to know that of themselves and practice that. And then when you're networking, also ask how you can help the individual. I hate it when students come and they're like, I'm looking for a job. Can you help? And I'm like, that's not how you network. Like, get to know the individual. And sometimes like people love to help. You know what I mean? People love to give back. They love to help. I honestly, I started collecting mentors or mentors. I call it a board of directors. You can have mentors for a lot of different things. As I transition from industry into now academia, I have a whole new set of mentors for different things. I have mentors in the nonprofit space. I'm also on the steering committee or the executive committee for Paytech Women. Some of these roles that are adjacent from the field that I'm in, I've had to gain knowledge through relationships and networking. And so being able to know what it is that you need and then also articulate maybe how you can help and bring something to the table with that relationship that you're establishing is really key. It's really important.
Yeah. How about you, Sebastian?
I would add, right? It's going out, it's probably now it's a lot easier for me to go out and network when I go to these trade shows because I've been going for them like consistently over the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Before we even wrote a single line of code, when this was just an idea, right? I would go to the regional shows and, ETA and just shake hands and literally talk to anyone who was willing to listen, right? And it doesn't have to be some clever openers like, we're revolutionizing the way payments companies manage their clients. It starts as simple as like, hey, how are you doing? Right? It's like, how's it going? Right? Just opening that door and really just being sort of authentic and genuine to who you are, right? And I don't necessarily, always have like an ask in mind. There's just certain people that, either you admire based on, what they've done, their accomplishments in their own journey, right? Which sort of gravitate towards them and say like, hey, I want to be in that place at some point. And what do I have to do to get there? Right. And it's that authenticity, right? And sort of very humble approach to uh how you ask someone else for their timing, right?
Yeah.
But what I would add, it's like it takes time, right? It's not like I meet you today and can I get a job, right? It's that follow up and it's important staying connected and making the time to connect with that person again at some point in the near future, right? And that's where I think that people think of it as networking as like very transactional, right? And I'm looking for this. Can you help me? And if you don't, then I'm moving on to the next conversation. Rather than it's like I literally talk to everyone because you'll be amazed that sometimes there's like people that you wouldn't assume they would be able to help you end up being the ones that can make the biggest change on your own journey, right? So I try to approach it from an angle of really just, genuine curiosity around like, hey, who are you as a person, as a right career, accomplishments, whatnot, but also as an individual, like where you come from, right? Like what's your cultural background from? And that helps you really down the road, right? To when you need to make an ask, it's a lot easier because this is not coming from a place of like, this is what I need. It's rather, hey, we have a relationship here. You want to see me win. I want to see you win. So like, this is what I need in order to win in my next milestone, right? So it becomes easy ask at that point.
Yeah. I think it's
I want to add something.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, I think it's easier too to find commonalities, right? You want to continue to build that relationship somehow. It's just not a transaction, just like you said. It's not like, hey, I'm Otai. Hey, I'm Sebastian, and that's it, right? It's a way to connect with each other outside of what the end goal that you want. Eventually, you'll get there, but it's just finding those commonalities.
Yeah.
Were you going to say something, Laura?
I actually was thinking, when I was thinking about networking doesn't necessarily have to always be human interaction. It could be, leveraging technology. I already said LinkedIn earlier. But LinkedIn is such an amazing platform. There's opportunities to connect with people. I honestly, I try to engage on people's, posts, reading different people's articles and making a comment, establishing some relationship and a reputation of trust between individuals. I reached out cold via LinkedIn to connect with people. We're always encouraging students to leverage their networks in the communities, and sometimes you might not get a response, but keep trying. There's someone out there who's is eager, especially for next gen, to give back and to contribute to their journeys. And so networking can also be digital, and leveraging platforms like that where you don't even have to worry about being uncomfortable, like I mentioned to earlier, and putting yourself out there. You could do it through the guise of technology as well. And so there's a lot of ways to connect with and grow your network.
Yeah. You're here. Here's that. All right. So we do have a question that came in. What are some podcasts you would recommend? Sebastian, do you listen to any podcasts?
I do. It really varies depending on my life stage. Like I get really obsessed over, podcasts. Like that'll be like the only thing I'll listen to. Like when I first discovered how I built this, I was like, I must have listened to every tech episode within the first couple of weeks of me learning about it, right? Now I'll listen to, Acquired Podcast is a good one. Kind of tells you the story about, how Meta, AWS, Visa came to be, and these are like 3 hour long episodes, and it's like I recently listened to the Visa one, and I was like, wow, like there is absolutely no way in hell that anyone can build a Visa again in this lifetime, right? Because what it took to get that network off the ground, and having the buy-in from not just banks here in the US, but like globally, to build this sort of universal rail where we can transact some 60 years later. Like that is wild, right? And all those stories, right? It's effectively what really resonates with me, right? As I'm building something that someday I hope it becomes a household name, right? And learning and really hearing those stories where they were one day from funding away from shutting down, and now they're a household name, right? Those are the stories that inspire me and really help me add some perspective when things get tough, because they would always get tough, right? And you're not the first one to go through those tough things. So I would say, How I Built This and Acquired are some of my favorite podcasts out there.
Okay. How about you, Laura?
Yeah, I have a few. Yeah. Money 2020 has one called Money Pot. And I love the fact that they have a podcast series throughout the year, but they also have real estate kind of allocated on the expo floor to do real-time interviews as well with industry leaders and folks who are unveiling new technologies or new solutions in the show, from a conference perspective. And so Money Pot has been a good one. My friends over Ted Huff and folks with Fintech Confidential. That's another one that's in my playlist. We had out. I know.
Shout out.
And then I'll shout out Georgia Fintech Academy podcast. Oh wait, how about not mine?
Hey.
Yeah, we're having very, very approachable conversations, breaking it down, various different topics in the industry. So that one's also a good one. I was trying to scroll through my list because I'm like, I know I have another Fintech Insiders. They also have a great publication as well. So not only the podcast, Fintech Insider by 11FS, that one's a good one. Around the Coin, just because I've been really interested in crypto. That's another good one. I actually might do a newsletter or article on LinkedIn of like my top podcasts I listened to today, because it's a combination of like some personal, professional development, and then also industry news and insights. And so, there's a lot of different resources out there, but I think podcasts, for some reason, it's like a gateway kind of thing. Like as you're into one and you see a recommendation, you're having conversations, there's so much out there, but there's some really good ones to listen into.
Yeah. Well, so there you have it. So just like that, life taking you in different directions, there's no playbook, there's no guidelines. And so from our conversation today, what is one takeaway you would want everyone to remember? I'm going to throw it over to you first, Laura.
So although Sebastian and I shared our paths into the industry, and we did talk about there's no playbook, your path won't look like everyone else's. Not one path looks alike unless you're literally cut and pasting. And I think that's the point. That's the point, and that's like what's so exciting about this industry, that it's your journey, and you can make of it what you like. Stay curious, stay connected, as we mentioned earlier. Stay grounded and humble, as Sebastian also mentioned earlier. And then get connected to what really matters to you. I think at some point in my career, I was really looking to gain momentum, and I had a visualization of what I thought success looked like. And then honestly, the pandemic kind of forced me to kind of just break that down altogether. And I'm like, I need to do something that's more aligned with my mission and what gives me purpose and fulfills me, which is why I'm here where I am today. And so I would say, embrace the opportunities, and stay curious and stay connected, with some of the points that we said earlier.
I like that. Embrace the opportunity, stay connected, stay curious. Yeah.
Mhm.
How about you, Sebastian?
I would just add, very beautifully put, is Gibson, as always. I would add, honestly, it really, it's finding a place, right? Whether it's you're building your own business or you're in a career in some large or small payments company, right? It's also being passionate towards not just the space, but maybe the problem you're solving, right? Because whether in life or building a business, right, it's tough, and you will get punched at some point.
Yeah.
And really it is that passion towards, in my case, solving a big problem in the industry, that really helps me navigate through those tough days that are guaranteed to come, right? And today I'm having them at our office, but those tough days were at some point in someone else's office, right? And it's that's the importance of feeling passionate again towards some problem you're solving, the industry you're part of, and the people that you work with, right? Because all the things that we just talked about, they're simple, right? Like, hey, reach out to people, connect with them. But if you're not passionate towards like wanting to learn about, something specific about in payments, then, it's gonna be very hard for you to reach out cold to a person that's maybe famous online, for example, right? Or that you really admire, whatever it may be, right? It's like hard to be authentic when you don't feel any passion or drive towards that subject, right? So whatever it is, whether it's in this space or not, right? It's be passionate towards that, right? And it doesn't have to be this grandiose, like I am passionate about solving the biggest problem in the industry. It could be something like very simple. It's like I want to be the passion towards being the best ops manager in my job, right? And eventually being the best ops manager in whatever goal or line in the sand you to derive that value or that definition of what do you consider successful, right?
Yeah. So finding your passion. Yeah, I would probably agree with that too. It's finding your why and letting your why kind of direct your compass. And it should guide you. Always leaning back to what your why is, for sure.
And sometimes and I would add, right, it's like sometimes we got to try new things to find that why, right? Like we don't know, like I mean, even UnWine, right? Like UnWine wasn't always part of Paytech Women and VizyPay, right? And it's like at some point, like, hey, I have this idea, I think it could work. Let me give it a shot. You try to like, wow, I feel passionate towards like I love talking to other folks in the industry, right? And here we are today, right? And
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, who'd have thought? Like, it's a brainchild that came out after some conversations, and I'm like, let's do this. This is what we could do. I don't see anything like this. Let's create a platform that's unique and, just real, just normal table talk conversations that we would have with friends. Right?
Yep. I think that as humans, we hope to evolve, based off those experiences. You hope that there's some evolution into something bigger, better, stronger. Reinvention is not negative. I think people look at it sometimes as failure. You know what I mean? I tried this, I didn't like it. I wasted 2 years of my life. You know what I mean? And it's not necessarily that way. I think people need to be open and flexible, but I think all the people I network with, no one ever planned to be where they are today, which is how we started this conversation.
Yeah.
We all kind of like fell into this space, and all of those
Yeah.
people had to reinvent themselves. And so what you're talking is having that openness, but then, giving yourself that grace to be able to achieve that and to do that successfully.
Exactly. Yeah. Resiliency for sure. Shout out to Paytech Woman. I know we have in the chat here, for those that's not going to be able to see this chat because it is being recorded and we'll post it on YouTube. But Paytech Woman is giving 6 months free to anyone that is looking to try out to celebrate the 20th anniversary this year. The code is PTW20PASS. Again, that's PTW20PASS. If anyone is interested in passing along to a friend, a colleague that wants to join, or just curious. So this is an opportunity for just to join in 6 months. Why not? Risk free.
Yeah. Okay. I gotta plug something else with that.
Yeah,
And then
go for it,
Paytech
go
Women,
for
the
it.
platform is, I mean, it's great. It's open to all. Sebastian has come to the Women's Leadership Summit
Every summit.
Yeah, he has.
every year. Yeah.
Thanks for you, of course.
Supportive
But
as an ally. I know. Women in taste. It's not only a network for women, and I want to make sure everyone that's listening in is aware of that. Is aware of the fact that through this network we have a strong community of people who are willing to connect. What we talked about earlier, the network is strong within Paytech Women. There's a lot of people with expertise in so many different areas to
Yeah.
tap into. There's resources like Mentor for a Minute, or long-term executive coaching. We have chapters all across the US that you can join if you want to connect in person. There's virtual webinars. There's just so many resources. And when you said, we were talking earlier about how to get connected, how to stay plugged in, I'm like, take advantage of it. It's 6 months for free. So why not? Why are you not doing that? Yeah. Cut and paste that,
And-
share it.
And I know it's Paytech, but it's for anyone, honestly, financial services, fintech, banking, payments, whatever it is. A lot of people see it as a professional development. How do I grow and develop myself? Whether, I am now an individual contributor to someone that wants to be a leader, a mentor.
Yeah.
There's opportunities across the board for sure.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining our Let's UnWine series powered by VizyPay in partnership with Paytech Woman. A big thank you and shout out to our speakers, Sebastian and Laura. This webinar is being recorded, so just a reminder, it is being recorded and it will be uploaded to both VizyPay and Paytech Woman's YouTube channel. You can definitely hit that subscribe button now on both channels so you don't miss out on future sessions. Feel free to connect with myself, Sebastian, Laura on LinkedIn or anywhere. I'm sure you'll be able to find us somehow, our contacts, and let us know your thoughts. Your feedback is important to us. And it'll help us create content that's tailored to your interests and needs. We want to create more content like this for you guys to listen to learn off and grow. So there we have it. Thank you so much for unwinding with us, and I'm glad you did. Cheers, everyone.
Salud. So do we chug the rest of our drink at this point, or?
Yeah, go for it. Your water bottle right there.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.